A lot of turnover expected for the 49ers to happen over the course of the next couple months. That means that we're going to have to keep a close eye on the evolving depth chart. I know that Dre Greenlaw has been in headlines, Javon Hargrave a little bit earlier than that, Talanoa Hufanga, of course, Deebo Samuel this past week. Why don't we take a look at the 49ers depth chart as it stands right now and start to account for some of these potential departures? This is the depth chart. It is available online. I've got the link for you right here. I'm going to copy and paste it into the comments section so you can all check this out. Mike might even take this and put it into the description. Mike, if you can do that, it's now in the comments section. People can follow along. I know it's a lot easier to follow along on your device if you can zoom in yourself, because sometimes it's a little bit harder to see. But we're going to take this position by position, talk about how the 49ers might fill in for some of the players who potentially will be gone. Even before we look at who might be gone, we can see on the depth chart that there are positions where the 49ers are going to have to add regardless. So I think it's really important to take a look at the bigger picture at all times when we look at how the 49ers are building their roster, because then it is a lot easier to understand how the Tetris pieces are fitting together for the 49ers. So I'm going to start the look at the evolving depth chart with the defensive back position. We got a piece coming up on the San Francisco Standard when we go through our State of the 49ers series. Part number 6 is going to be dropping on Friday, and we're going to be talking about the team's defensive backs. And the defensive backs take up this portion of the roster, highlighted here in light blue. As you can see, when I zoom out a little bit further, we've got the delineation between those who I project to make the 53-man roster and those who I don't project to make the 53-man roster. The 49ers have made one signing, which is highlighted in teal so far this offseason, and it is Quindell Johnson at safety. However, I don't think that Quindell Johnson is going to make the 53. Maybe something changes. Maybe things evolve over the course of this offseason, and he does. But I think for the time being, it is a lot more prudent to say that these are the guys expected to make the 53. These are the spots the 49ers still have to fill. Look, they only have 3 cornerbacks who I've predicted to make that 53-man roster. So you're going to have to add at corner. One of the players who's likely gone after this season that just wrapped up, who I didn't mention in the title, is Charvarius Ward. Ward tweeted the other day saying that whoever gets him next is going to get the very best version of himself. Well, Charvarius Ward was pretty damn good for the 49ers. Remember in 2021, the biggest weakness of that team in 2021 was by far the cornerback position. The secondary gave up a lot that season. Actually, the NFL record in pass interference yardage, over 400 yards, nearly 5 football fields worth of production the 49ers gave up through defensive pass interference alone. So they said, we've got to get a really good corner. We have to have an anchor corner. And they decided to sign Charvarius Ward, who previously had been with Kansas City, their big AFC rival. After the game against Carolina in 2021, John Lynch was waiting in the tunnel, patting guys on the chest as they came by. 49ers won that one in a blowout. That actually was the beginning of the pursuit of Christian McCaffrey, who played well against the 49ers with the Panthers. It was then that John Lynch talked to Scott Fitterer, the GM of the Panthers, about McCaffrey and said, hey, we might be giving you a call here in a couple weeks before the deadline. And then they did pick up McCaffrey. So a legend was born there. But as the 49ers players were coming in, Lynch was patting guys on the chest. One of the guys that he patted on the chest extra hard, extra happily, was Charvarius Ward. And Lynch said, worth every penny. Mooney Ward was worth every penny for the 49ers over the past 3 years, including the 2022 season when he was an all-pro. That transformed this pass defense from the 49ers' weakness to their strength. Because this past year, they were terrible on run defense, but the pass defense still managed to be at least okay for the 49ers, despite the fact that so much else was going wrong. But I would say that the strength of this football team on the defensive side of the ball for the 49ers in 2024, an otherwise grim year, was the cornerback position. Yes, Charvarius Ward dealt with personal tragedy this past season, but he still was a plus corner for the 49ers. And he helped usher in the younger guys. Obviously, Deommodore Lenoir, who signed a contract, credited the tutelage of Mooney Ward for so much of what's gone right in his career. But Renardo Green, the rookie out of Florida State, between these two, the 49ers have a nice 1-2 anchor. Now, it's unlikely that Mooney Ward is back for this football team. He was an All-Pro in 2022. The 49ers entered 2024. He's an All-Pro in 2024. The 49ers entered I misspoke. He was an All-Pro in 2023. The 49ers entered 2024 assuming that they would not be able to retain Charvarius Ward beyond the 2024 season. He didn't deliver his best year. I think we all can surmise why. I mean, he was dealing with so much off the field. Very, very thankfully, his baby boy, Charvarius Ward Jr., was born healthy late in the season. That was either December or January. That followed the tragedy of losing his daughter, Amani Joy, who was 23 months old. So we can understand why Charvarius Ward didn't play as well over the course of this season. He had so much going on off the field. And I think that the rest of the NFL probably is going to pick up on that as well. And that means that the 49ers are probably back at square one here. They entered the 2024 season assuming they wouldn't have enough money to pay Charvarius Ward because he has that all-pro pedigree. They're going to have to find a different path forward at the cornerback position. So this is where you start really looking toward the draft if you're the 49ers. But I will say one thing. Although they have spent a ton of draft capital, Mike, if you want to send me your draft capital chart that you made the other day, I think that would be perfect to send right now to the audience. But despite the fact that they've spent a lot of picks on defensive backs, the 49ers have not spent truly premium picks on defensive backs. And in fact, the highest that they've spent on a cornerback is a second rounder on Renardo Green last year. But look where Renardo Green is. He's already a starter for San Francisco. He played really well in the 2024 rookie season. So the fact that the 49ers scored with the highest ever pick that they've used on a defensive back leads me to believe that they might try that again here in the 2025 draft. It had seemed to be a philosophy. Don't take a defensive back until the third round or later. But when we see how important the secondary is, when we see the fact that Charvarius Ward is likely not going to be back, it wouldn't shock me if the 49ers decided to buck the trend of the past, just like they did last year with Renardo Green, and use more valuable draft capital on the cornerback position. This is from Mike right now. I'm going to download this. Mike, can you send me your methodology again on here and send everything that you have so we could share this with all the viewers? I just remembered that you had sent this to me while I was skiing, and I was like, this is perfect. We've got to share this on a live when I'm by a computer at some point soon. Mike always comes through with some of the best stuff. So I'm going to be able to download this, and I'm going to be able to put this up on the screen. So Mike has, okay, this is just the importance chart. Don't you have one more of what the 49ers have actually picked? Or is this the one that I have to share? Because I remember you sent me two. So I'm going to go, and I want to put both of them up on the screen at the same time. Here we go. Yes. The amount, okay, this is perfect. So these two are going to work in conjunction with each other. One is the amount of picks the 49ers have spent on given positions, and the other one is basically the amount of value the 49ers have spent on each position. And then Mike, he has the accompanying text to help us understand this. But first, I'm going to go to the amount of picks that the 49ers have spent on every single position, courtesy the man, Mike. They've spent 11 picks on wideouts, 10 picks on cornerbacks, 6 on linebackers, 5 on running backs, and then so on and so forth. We can go all the way down to punter and kicker, where they've spent 1 each. They've also drafted 1 center over the years. So this is the 49ers draft pick allotment over the seasons. And as you can see, they have picked, like I said, a ton of cornerbacks, but they have not picked cornerbacks generally up until Renato Green in the very high reaches of the draft. In fact, until they drafted Renato Green in the second round, the 49ers' highest use of draft capital at the cornerback position had been on Ahkello Witherspoon, which was in the third round of the 2017 draft. So these are just the raw amount of draft picks that the 49ers have used at each position. Now we can go to what Mike sent me as far as the importance positionally. And cornerback ranks 5.1. Let me see what Mike's explanation here is. This uses data on what round a player was taken and how many times their position was selected during the Lynch era. I created a formula to create a value chart of importance in the draft. So is this lower numbers are more important, Mike, or higher numbers are more important? Let me know on that. All I know is that the total picks at corner 10 have not generally been allotted. It's like golf. Okay, so because of the sheer amount of picks that the 49ers have put at the cornerback position, you're saying that the lower score here, they've really valued wide receivers through the draft, and they've really valued cornerbacks, according to this, through the draft because they picked 10 of them. So long story short, I go back to this depth chart. I do expect the 49ers to spend on the quarterback position. They're going to have to. I mean, Darrell Luter Jr. has barely played on defense for San Francisco ever since he was drafted a couple of years ago. I know there are a couple very prominent special teams blemishes that Darrell Luter Jr. has had, but in general, we don't know what he can do as a football player yet because we need to see him play cornerback. I know they're very high on his potential cornerback instincts and his talent at that position, but as it stands right now, Darrell Luter Jr. is going to be thrust right into the mix of things because the 49ers just don't have anybody else on the team at that DB position. Now, if we go and look in free agency, people are going to link the 49ers to DJ Reed. DJ is the cornerback who got away for the 49ers, who played under Robert Saleh with the New York Jets. Bakersfield native. I think that there's a lot to like about DJ Reed and compare with Deommodore Lenoir. They're both fifth-round draft picks. Both have played and developed really well at the NFL level. Both can play inside and outside, which I think is tremendously valuable. I mean, we were just talking about Cooper Kupp, who is likely to be traded by the Rams. This is a guy who's made his money playing over 60% of snaps in the slot receiver position, including during his record-breaking 2021 season. So if you want to combat offenses in the NFL, you have to be versatile. You have to be adaptable on the back end. And those are the types of cornerbacks that I think the 49ers are going to pursue and have pursued over recent years. I mean, when they first drafted Renato Green out of Florida State last year, the 49ers cross-trained him. They had him working inside first, and then he developed into earning reps on the outside. And then eventually he became an outside cornerback starter, but they made sure that he was able to play in the slot and play on the outside. And I expect the 49ers to do more of the same. So as you watch the next couple months, both in free agency and then in the draft, pay attention to adaptability of different prospects that the 49ers meet with. Pay attention to the three-cone drill, especially for some of these guys. I mean, the slot guys have to be really quick feet on the inside. And then pure burner speed, that's something you're going to want and need from your outside cornerbacks. So as far as skill sets go, the 49ers are going to need both. They're going to need the quickness and the shiftiness and the physicality of inside cornerbacks, and they're going to also need the pure speed and some of the, I think more sheer size of outside cornerbacks. The tricky part is playing inside, needing physicality, but also needing the quickness to keep up with some of these smaller slot receivers. And that's why Deommodore Lenoir is such a special player, because he could play on the outside and then he could shift to the inside. I'm trying to get a read of what Demo wants to do. I think that there still is this stigma attached with playing cornerback on the inside, that somehow you're not good enough to be the top Deion Sanders primetime outside cornerback. I think that stigma needs to die. I think it's tremendously outdated, but it still is there. And I know that Deommodore Lenoir didn't make the Pro Bowl this past year, and I know he got robbed out of that Pro Bowl appearance because he had better stats than all the guys that did make the Pro Bowl. But if ever that is the case, then the guy usually wants to play on the outside more to just say, hey, look, I'm on the outside 100% of the time, even though technically it might be easier to do that. But I think that does, in some really unfair ways, still give a cornerback more cachet in the game of football today. And I'm hoping that changes quickly, and I'm hoping that it changes quickly enough to where somebody like Deebo Samuel doesn't feel a need to have to play on the outside just to prove himself as a player, because I think one of the most valuable things that he did for the 49ers this past season was shift between outside and inside. And the more adaptability San Francisco can have, the better they're going to be as a defense. Now, safety is extremely interesting because Jair Brown was the top draft pick of this team a couple years ago. He's emerged into a starter, but he lost that starting job down the stretch run of this past season when Talanoa Hufanga returned to the lineup. They've used draft capital in each of the past 2 years at safety on Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa. It looks like Mustafa's the better player at this point, but will Brown bounce back? The 49ers certainly hope so, because if that does happen, then you're okay riding with Brown and Mustafa at safety, but it still seems that they need to fortify the position. This is where they probably will lose Talanoa Hufanga. So they probably will lose Charvarius Ward. They probably will lose Hufanga. There's a lot of depth that needs to be filled in here. Maybe Jalen Mahoney, the rookie this past season out of Vanderbilt, who really impressed them on special teams and apparently was very good in the film room, really disciplined player. Maybe he can jump into that fourth safety spot, but the 49ers chose not to go after a veteran this past offseason. Remember Justin Simmons, a lot of those types of players were out there. Quandre Diggs was out there as well. They didn't go for one of those players, and it ended up being an area of concern on the defense. They ended up having to sign Tashawn Gibson Sr., a veteran. Anyway, that was after his suspension was done. He had played for Jacksonville, or he didn't play. He was a part of their roster for the first 6 games. So the 49ers might reconsider this offseason and say, hey, we need a veteran backstop at one of those safety positions, given some of the tackling issues, given some of the breakdowns that they had last year. All right, the next position on defense where the 49ers really, really need to stock up, and I talked about this in a couple of the videos we did for the Mountains over the past few days, linebacker. I mean, they literally only have 3 on the roster. So Warner, Winters, Bethune, then, okay, yes, if you add Dre Greenlaw, this is where he'd be, right? And you'd flip-flop him with D. Winters as the second linebacker, but he would give you a 4th body in the room. But you still need at least a 5th body in the room. Then you're going to need players that fill out the 90-man roster for the offseason so you can run proper practices and hold a proper competition even with injuries. So Greenlaw in there, yes, we put him in there. I think even Wood, who's the name that we keep on bringing up, he's been with the Jets. He was with Robert Saleh. He'd be the 49ers' 5th linebacker. Obviously not in that order on the 49ers depth chart, but just 5th as in numbers on the roster. All of a sudden you could see a robust filled linebacker room. But I think if you do add Dre Greenlaw, you're going to have to add a veteran who has showcased some durability, because Greenlaw couldn't finish a game last season. And that's, I mean, it's a concern. It's a problem. And that's why I'm not so sure that the 49ers will be able to re-sign Dre Greenlaw, because it's all going to depend on the market in the league. Is there going to be a team that says, hey, he didn't finish a game last year, but we still want to give him a multi-year deal. We still want to make him the guy. If there is, Dre should go sign with that team. He absolutely needs to worry about his family, about his career, more than the 49ers. Like, he doesn't owe anything to the 49ers. They might owe something to him as he was trying to fight back through a torn Achilles to play in that game before they're eliminated against the Rams. So Dre Greenlaw needs to do what's best for him. What's best for him might not align with what the 49ers can afford to pay this next season, just given the fact that he has shown the explosiveness, but he has not yet shown the durability that the 49ers probably would need to see before they're comfortable paying bigger money. Took a quick peek at the Warriors game here. They got Jimmy Butler on the team now. They're making every game exciting, that's for sure. They're only down by 2 against Dallas with 4 minutes to go. So I'll keep an eye on that game out of the corner of my eye as we continue to talk about the 49ers evolving depth chart. I think that linebacker is one of those positions that has so many openings. I mean, it's not like defensive line and some of the offensive positions that are already a little bit more full when it comes to the 53-man projection. Linebacker is a position that has a ton of openings that will necessitate the 49ers using both draft and free agency avenues to fill it. So there's going to be a heck of a lot of movement at linebacker, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see what the 49ers value. In the past, they have brought guys in with DB backgrounds into the linebacker position for good coverage. But remember that the 49ers dropped down to number 29 when it came to run defense this past year. And I think the linebackers were in large part to blame. They obviously had Greenlaw for only 34 snaps. I think they also struggled to tackle from safety. The defensive line wasn't good. Fred Warner, supposedly the other day, he was sitting with LaShawn McCoy at a Super Bowl event. And LaShawn McCoy shared this, and I saw it on social media. LaShawn asked Fred, hey, what happened to the team last year? And Fred told him, man, our defense was bad, like really bad. Like Fred Warner didn't mince any words when he was talking about how poorly the 49ers played defensively. And a lot of that was happening in his own unit that was missing Dre Greenlaw. Obviously, Devondre Campbell was not playing great football, and then he walked out on the team. But the 49ers do need to get better against the run because they were horrific. Oh, my God. Curry drained one. The Warriors have the lead, 102-101. This is going to be fun to watch. Their first lead since it was 6-4. So I hope if you guys put on that game right now, I know I'm advertising against myself, but if you put on that game, keep on this. You don't have to listen to the audio on the game. You could listen to 49ers talk audio while watching the Warriors on TV, because that is getting fun now they picked up Jimmy Butler. I was wondering how that was going to work, and we probably should still have some of our doubts since he is an older player. What is he, 35, 36? I think he's around my age, but Steph isn't young either. Maybe they got one last run in them. They're 2-0 ever since Jimmy Butler has come back. Anyway, linebacker position, if you're the 49ers, this has to be taken care of in the context of stopping the run. If you can't stop the run, if you're still going to stay in the 20s against the run, it's over. You're not going to win the Super Bowl. You absolutely must stop the run. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. They got Saquon Barkley now. How the hell are you going to win the NFC if you can't slow down Saquon? And if you're the number 29 run defense in the league because your linebackers are getting abused, because your safeties can't tackle, it's going to be big-time trouble. So I can't wait to see what San Francisco does at linebacker. The name that I've brought up multiple times now is Jamien Sherwood, played for the Jets. Might be a little bit of a bidding war. 49ers might try to get him, but the Atlanta Falcons with Jeff Ulbrich, his former defensive coordinator with the Jets, might also be interested in picking up Jamien Sherwood. But there are going to be a heck of a lot of other names. We're going to go through this position by position as this offseason develops. I can't wait for the NFL Combine to see some measurements. As this starts to crystallize, right, we'll start to have a better idea of which prospects might fit the 49ers, especially once we get a more comprehensive visit list. Defensive line, this is fascinating because they signed a bunch of guys to 2-year contracts last year, and that means that they have a loaded depth chart as far as names. Does that mean this is the final depth chart? No, because you can always improve a defensive line, especially one of the number 26 overall defense in the NFL last year. So say that they're able to get Myles Garrett. You would immediately slot Myles Garrett in opposite Nick Bosa. You would immediately probably, would bump Sam Okawanu off of the top players in this rotation. So you'd have Leonard Floyd as your third defensive end. Myles Garrett on this football team, and I'm highlighting the defensive line and I'm zooming in on it. Look how fearsome this looks suddenly with Myles Garrett available. Bosa and Garrett on the bookends. Collins, who was a top 6, top 7 defensive tackle in terms of pass rush win rate on the inside. Jordan Elliott, who was a good run stopper last year, but really wasn't a good pass rusher. He'd be another inside piece. I think the 49ers could still upgrade that. But look at this. With Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos providing depth for San Francisco, this would be a hell of a defensive line. I better undo those changes before people think that the 49ers actually picked up Myles Garrett. Now, is that still unrealistic? Yes. Is it a possibility, though, that we should talk about? Absolutely. This is Tim Kawakami, my coworker at the Standard, was talking about this being a go for broke type of year, and he's getting that vibe out of the 49ers facility. If that's the case, Myles Garrett, he just said a few days ago that he wants to win a championship, which to me broadcasts that he might be willing to play ball contractually. All you need at that point is the Cleveland Browns to be willing to play ball on a trade. And then all of a sudden, that's why the 49ers are one of the 5 favorites to land Myles Garrett if there is a trade. I mean, this is a generational player. This is a future Hall of Famer. This is what the 49ers have been missing ever since 2019. They had an overpowering defensive line, one of the great DLs in history in 2019. They haven't been quite as good since because they haven't had the bookending edge rushers. No matter what they do to be stronger on the inside, and they signed Javon Hargrave ahead of the 2023 season, it hasn't nullified the issue of Nick Bosa taking a bunch of double teams because the other edge rushing spot has not been strong enough. Somebody like Drake Jackson was drafted with that in mind. He was hurt all of last year. We didn't see any of Drake in 2024. Maybe we'll see some of him in 2025, but you can't count on it, right? So you need more firepower at edge rusher. They could go to Mike Green. We could talk so much about the defensive tackle class, which is awesome. Headlined by Mason Graham. This draft class, I think, could really help the 49ers on the inside. It's totally possible that their first pick in this draft goes toward a defensive tackle. But Mike Green is an edge rusher from Marshall. He led the nation in sacks last year. That would potentially satisfy what they need on the exterior because they need both. I think if you look at what they have under contract, there is not a lot of pass rushing firepower on the inside. Malik Collins was good. I get it, but Jordan Elliott wasn't a good pass rusher. Kalia Davis wasn't a good pass rusher. And Evan Anderson was okay. He might have saved that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a really nice stop and a really nice pressure. But yeah, I think you need more. And that I talk in the headline, I say, what does this roster look like without Javon Hargrave? And maybe Hargrave is back, right? That there's a reason why they're interested in bringing Hargrave back, and that's because this group of interior rushers just isn't quite cutting it for the 49ers on paper. They're going to need more firepower there. And they are willing to pay Javon a certain amount, but he's got to test the market, kind of like Eric Armstead did last year and then declined what the 49ers were offering. They can't pay him $20 million. Not for the production that they were getting from Javon Hargrave. He wasn't a bad interior rusher, but he was hurt, and he missed almost all of the 2024 season. They probably see him as a player that's worth between $5 and $10 million per year instead of a player that's worth about $20 million per year. Whatever the rest of the league sees is going to determine whether or not the 49ers can bring back Hargrave. Now, one thing is that the free agent cost of defensive tackles might actually plummet this year because the draft assortment of defensive tackles is stronger than it might have ever been. Daniel Jeremiah, who analyzes this for a living, does a great job every year for the NFL Network, said at this time last year, he had 12 defensive tackles with high draft grades. This year, like starter caliber grades. This year, he already has 24 defensive tackles in this draft with starter caliber grades. So just based on one man's evaluations of this draft, it is twice as good at the defensive tackle position than it was last season. And in a season where I think the 49ers absolutely must stock up on that interior firepower, I think that is worth writing home about. Somebody like Javon Hargrave, again, this is all tied together. So when you talk about free agency in March, teams are going to be bidding on the services of some of these free agent defensive tackles with the knowledge of the upcoming draft in mind. And if they know that you've got monsters like Mason Graham and you've got those monsters in numbers waiting to be picked in that NFL draft, maybe somebody like Javon Hargrave and his price is not quite as high. So maybe you can double dip. Maybe you can bring back Hargrave and you could draft a defensive tackle in one of the first 3 rounds. And boom, all of a sudden, this defensive line looks a whole lot more robust when it comes to rushing the passer. What the 49ers absolutely must do, though, is treat this defense as a whole entity. And the linebackers and the safeties and the corners have to back up the defensive line, and they have to stop the run. You're not going to have any fun if you're San Francisco if you cannot stop the run. So we're going to move on to the offense now. And scroll up. Hopefully that gives you guys a good picture of where the 49ers are at defensively with this roster. They need more good players. If we look at the Philadelphia Eagles blueprint, yes, Howie Roseman has been great over the years drafting defensive line. I mean, this goes back to Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. That was the start of the previous decade. And these are guys that lasted with the team into this decade. Brandon Graham even played in the Super Bowl, but he's replenished, right? They lost Javon Hargrave. He signed with the 49ers. The Eagles got a comp pick for that. But Milton Williams, third rounder in 2021. Josh Sweat was picked back in 2018. He's going to be a free agent this offseason for the Eagles. The edge rusher, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, he directly replaced somebody like Javon Hargrave. I mean, this is all masterclass stuff for the Philadelphia Eagles. The 49ers are going to have to try to replenish in the same way, but you got to look at this in the big picture, and it's defense wide. Like the Eagles, Cooper DeJean had that pick 6. Zach Bond, the linebacker, graded higher than Fred Warner. So it's not just the defensive line that they invested in. They invested in every single level over the past few years successfully. And that's what San Francisco has to continue to do. I'm not going to say that the 49ers have been terrible at drafting because that's just not true. In fact, they're coming off one of their better drafts. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, I started off talking about Renardo Green. I started talking about Malik Mustafa. Those are two 2024 draftees who have delivered for the 49ers as rookies, and now they're going to count on them to deliver some more. But what the 49ers can really use a boost at is that defensive line. Little quick check-in on how the Warriors are doing. 107 with 37 seconds to go. Steph is shooting a free throw here to try to give the Warriors the lead, and he missed. My goodness. When's the last time we saw Steph miss a free throw? Especially with the game tied and 35 seconds left. That is wild to me. I mean, that's a once in a blue moon kind of thing. Doesn't that guy shoot like 96% from the free throw line? Crazy. All right. Anyway, 107, 35 seconds to go. We're moving on to the 49ers offense here. This show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon. rocketmoney.com/gameon. Unfortunately, this is not a salary cap show. If it was, then I would say that the 49ers are probably using Rocket Money to manage their salary cap because they've done a very good job of it. Today, I shared a tweet, and this is something that I'll get into when we delve further into the salary cap. The two NFL teams who are leading the entire league in terms of money put into void years. So I talk about the accordion and pressing money into the future, or stretching money into the future against the salary cap using those void years. It's the Philadelphia Eagles, a massive gap, the San Francisco 49ers at number 2, and then a massive gap, and then everyone else. The Eagles and the 49ers have been using the most financial sophistication when it comes to stretching salary cap hits out into the future. They've been doing that more prolifically than any other team in the league, and I think it's only a matter of time before the rest of the NFL figures it out. But definitely worth noting that the 49ers, they're the Rocket Money type of management, cap management in the NFL. All right, basketball games resuming. Dallas just took the lead. 109-107. You know what's really irritating about the NBA is that they call about 19 timeouts over the last 3 minutes of the game. So I might be done with this live and the game might still have 8.2 seconds left. And that's why people like the NFL more. That's why like 2,300 of you right now are watching this, even though this basketball game is on. It is literally more entertaining for you, or just as entertaining for you, to watch somebody talking about the 49ers who are 9 months away or 7 months away from playing football. You're listening to somebody talk about the 49ers in front of a gray curtain over watching this basketball game. Or maybe you're doing what I'm doing and doing two things at once. But we're going to go back to the depth chart We're going to talk about the offense without Deebo Samuel. He's still technically on the roster, but maybe we should apply a shading to his spot here. I don't know, something like, let's do a yellow shading because he's very likely to be traded. So you're going to have to figure out a way to make up the loss of Deebo Samuel in the receiver room, which is something I think the 49ers are very confident that they'll be able to do, but it's still something that's not guaranteed, right? I mean, so Deebo, I think that you look at Isaac Guerendo, who should be fully healthy at any point now. We'll check in on him soon. But you look at Isaac Guerendo, he was a receiver in college before he converted to running back. Deebo's obviously a wide back. He plays a little bit of both. I think that being willing to move on from Deebo and being confident in that shows faith not only in Ricky Pearsall, but also in Isaac Guerendo. All right, Warriors have the ball. Jimmy Butler ties the game, but I think they call an offensive foul on him. He is not happy. They're going to replay this. But, these reviews in the NBA, I don't know how they go. I don't understand how this league works. And there's yet another timeout, this one for a coach's challenge. It's literally going to take them 35 minutes to play 2 minutes. They got to speed this up. This is ridiculous. I'm watching the replay. Yeah, I mean, it does look like he completely trucked that poor defender leading with his elbow. So, I mean, I'm not sure what they're challenging here. He's out of control. That's got to stand, right? Okay, we're back to the depth chart while we wait for this obnoxiously long review process to go through. I don't need to watch a replay of that 55 times, but ESPN is going to show me anyway. Guerendo and Pearsall give the 49ers confidence that they can take this pass game to the next level with younger players. Deebo Samuel obviously did not deliver at the level that he had previously delivered in 2024. There are many reasons for it, but I think the 49ers are saying that even if he raises his game back to a 2023 type of level, the investment in Deebo Samuel is no longer commensurate with the amount of efficiency that he's going to give them. Because Brock Purdy is a different type of quarterback. They really want those separators downfield now. And they feel that Isaac Guerendo can give them separation, speed, power, adaptability at a level that can help pick up the slack for what they're going to lose from Deebo Samuel, especially if they can get some draft capital in return. And I think that they could easily get some day 3 capital, and nobody should scoff at day 3 capital since it literally yielded great players like Brock Purdy and Jawan Jennings. I mean, hell, Dre Greenlaw was picked in the 5th round. That's a day 3 draft pick. George Kittle was a day 3 draft pick. These are all valuable assets, and the 49ers also are looking to save salary cap space wherever they can. You could save a good 16, 17 million by moving Deebo Samuel before the start of this next season. Anyway, that receiver position, I made a video about it a little bit earlier. This one was from Shaver on The Rock a little bit earlier today. Devontae Adams can't be ruled out if the Jets move on from him, but I think probably some less prolific names like Darius Slayton, Elijah Moore might be more appetizing for the 49ers just because the contracts will probably be around 6 to 8 million and not, with Devontae Adams, he would have to be ring chasing for the 49ers to be able to envision a price tag that works with him. But we got to keep an eye out on Jacob Cowing as well. And we're going to have to keep an eye out on the draft prospects. I think that the likeliest scenario here is the 49ers land a mid-tier wide receiver to help them bridge the gap while Brandon Ayuk is still out. We don't know exactly how long that's going to be, but obviously you cannot expect Brandon Ayuk to be ready and available for week 1, given the fact that he tore his ACL just this past year. Looks like the Warriors are going to get beat. They just turned it over on the inbounds pass. So first loss of the Jimmy Butler era for Golden State. And I'm sure their fans are going to be coming in frustrated droves to this show right now. So great. We can talk about the 49ers as your turning off the basketball game in anger. We're almost done. We've got, tight end to go? Hey, this is where Tyler Warren would fit really nice, right? The stud out of Penn State, 6'4", 261. We'll see how he runs at the NFL Combine. 49ers it's been a dream for years. Pair George Kittle with a tight end who can really catch the ball. I think Tyler Warren would count for that. They've still got Juszczyk under contract for another year at the fullback position. They do need to add at the running back position. So the draft is always fair game in that regard. We'll see who becomes available in free agency, but running back needs depth and still has some spots. Receiver needs a little bit more depth. Who's going to be the backup quarterback? Do they go to Joe Flacco? That might be one of the most intriguing points of this offseason. Who's the QB2 for San Francisco, and is it going to be somebody with some name recognition? Joe Flacco, I think, would not be a bad backup for the 49ers. You're looking for experience. You're looking for somebody who could string together a couple games in case Brock Purdy gets hurt for the short term. You want a good veteran in the room? That's one of the pieces of the roster the 49ers have to work on here as February will turn into March. And then last but definitely not least is the offensive line. Jake Brendel, I've got my questions about his knee health, especially after it seemed that he really regressed last season. Drew Dahlman, that's the name at center. Drew Dahlman, former 49ers dad, right? Chris Dahlman was on San Francisco's radar entering the 2021 draft. One of the better centers in football, is going to be a free agent. I think that immediately could elevate the 49ers line. Drew Dahlman has evolved as a pass protector over the years. I truly believe that the best way to improve the 49ers offensive line is through legit veteran investment at center, because that's the position that handles all of the calls, and I think that center can make everyone around him better. You've upgraded right guard with Dominic Pooney. If you can upgrade center with a veteran, ready-made veteran like Drew Dahlman, all of a sudden you're looking a lot better at left guard, even though you're not sure he's going to be playing there. Because whoever's playing next to a good center is going to look better. Trent Williams, they say that he's close to full health. I'm going to take the injury shading off of Trent Williams. Had that bruise in his ankle joint last year. And I think that Colton McKivitz also close to full health for the 49ers as well, so we can take the injury shading off of him. If they go for a tackle early, and that starts with Will Campbell from LSU and moves down, but if they are able to go for a tackle early, if there's somebody they really like, and I think it's really tough because 49ers have such high physical standards for their tackles, then yes, you could start talking about a potential either apprenticeship under Colton McKivitz for the start of the season or an outright replacement of Colton McKivitz, and then a move from Colton McKivitz to one of the guard positions. Maybe even Dominic Pooney moves from right guard to left guard and McKivitz moves into the right guard position. Imagine a line, just envision this. And we could talk about the permutations later, but imagine Drew Dahlman at center. Let's just say the 49ers did draft Will Campbell, put him at right tackle. Let's say that they moved Dominic Pooney to left guard, and then Colton McKivitz was their right guard. Raise your hand if you would like this offensive line. I'm not saying that this is realistic. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but with a draftee and a free agent signing, just two of the right kind of moves, the 49ers can, and then obviously some positional moves up front, 49ers can have a completely new look offensive line that I think would line up as a potentially dominant unit. McKivitz is a guard. Now, we'd have to see how the rookie would perform at right tackle, but Drew Dahlman at center helping everybody be better, and Dominic Pooney maybe at an even more natural position since he played on the left side at left tackle for Kansas. Yeah, I think it's food for thought. So this offensive line, that's what I'm going to leave you guys with on this show. The evolving 49ers depth chart. We went through every single position except for kicker and punter. We'll see how that evolves. We'll see what kind of competition the 49ers bring in for Jake Moody and, hey, maybe even for Mitch Wishnowsky, since Mitch missed most of this past season, or at least the stretch run with that knee injury. Everybody, thanks for watching. Sorry about the basketball game. If you're a Warriors fan, hopefully this cheered you up. We'll talk to you soon.